Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of SurrealEstate. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, it's, that voiceover from August talking about the fact is that they thought they had everything figured out, that the Dontovan House, oh man, this was their big victory, but it's like, no, we've had it wrong this entire time, that basically everything at the Dontovan House has kind of, because obviously I don't think I talked about it last episode, but a lot of the houses that Rita gave them, like, they all kind of circle around one particular property, the Dontovan House, and it turns out that when they thought they were doing good, they might have actually caused a lot more of a ripple effect around things, and that's why the Dontovan House has continued to be the paranormal powerhouse that it's been because of them. It's like they were completely mistaken about what's going on. So you have Luke waking up, Megan checking on him, make sure he's okay, while the rest of the team is trying to figure out, like, how do we get in the house? Can't go through the front door. There is a back door, but it might have the same effect. And so there's like no other entrances, so Phil is trying to look up some stuff to find out if there's another way in. Obviously, you have Susan and Megan talking, which there's the complicated thing of, like, for Megan, it's like, she's a very scientific person, like, because for her, she's like, she talks to Susan because it's like, right, you're the only other rational person because, like, they both recently came into the world of all this craziness. Susan's had her own situation, but I think for her, it's like, that's my thing, and it's just kind of like, her thing, maybe she can justify, like, it's a weird thing that I have, like, I don't think Megan's really aware of that, so it's like this world isn't too out of the realm of possibility for her, but I think it's still a disconnect for Susan because she ends up talking about it later on. Her powers have always been like as Luke says it, like a break glass in case of emergency situation. It was like when she was afraid or when she was angry. So, like, I guess maybe that's where the disconnect comes. But for Megan, it's like, I'm just a regular person. I'm a scientific, rational person. Like, all of this seems crazy to me. Like, I would have never experienced anything I've experienced in the past few months. It just feels like a fever dream that it's like you're just waiting for the moment for you to, and she says, and, Susan finishes by saying, wake up. And sadly, that leads to her and Luke kind of breaking up because she's like, I should probably be staying at my place for it. Like, she knows it's kind of a weird time considering everything that's going on, but, like, calming what she found with August and everything. But it's just like, this world, and it's understandable, like, this world isn't for everyone. And even August had said it last episode, for however long you take this road, because he's not going to say something like, oh, like, I'm sure you guys are going to last. It's like, no, forever, however long you guys take this trip together, thanks for being, because even, I think maybe even what he said probably cemented some things too in her mind of like, right, this is kind of a bumpy road for someone outside of the realm of all of this. As someone that's kind of like, it's a lot for anyone to kind of take in, which Luke's not mad at her. He's just like, right, if things ever kind of change, it's like, you know where to find me type of thing. Of like, he's not trying to hold it against her. He realizes like how crazy his world is, and her not wanting to, like, her kind of coming along as long as she has is fine. But it's just like, that's a lot to ask a person. So it's just kind of like that almost like mutual thing without being, it's a thing that's said without being said. She's like, I'll stay at my new place for a few weeks. But it's like, it's kind of sad. It's better than the alternative I was kind of throwing out there, being like, oh, maybe Megan's not actually Megan, that she's not actually that basically, like, she's actually, like, a bad person or anything. Like, I had, like, go back if you want to listen to, like, some of the theories I threw out there, but like, oh, I'm scared, like, maybe Megan won't make it at the end of the series, but it's like, this is a better alternative than, it's sad, but I think the other, like, theories I've thrown out there were even sadder, so, at least it's just this. There's always a possibility for things to change. We'll see, especially where things end up at the end of the episode, but we'll get there soon enough. But Zoe tried to go into the house on her own, went to the back door, lo and behold, who's there? Kyle. Because this house, I guess, has always been the epicenter for, like, the supernatural, the paranormal, like, at least what it was built on, that cellar door. Because we end up finding out later on that door isn't meant to, it's, as August said last episode, it's a way out, not a way in. So what that meant is, they thought like spirits were pouring out of that place. But the moment they closed the door, they trapped all the spirits there. So this place gathers a whole bunch of spirits because this is kind of like basically the portal to the other side. And it's like the moment they closed it, that's why so many spirits have like aggregated to this place. They thought like, oh, that place was a portal opening it up and allowing spirits to come there. It's like, no, they were all being drawn there, and the more spirits that were drawn there and being stuck there, the house was feeding off of it, and that's why the Dontovan House was like no other house, and that's why the point, it was like all these other places around it were being affected because the effects were starting to spread. Like that power was, the house is essentially flexing. It was, its power of influence was spreading. It's kind of essentially what's going on. And so that's the crux of all of this. So you have Susan, Phil, and Zoe convincing the next door neighbor, like, hey, like, someone's trying to buy your house, let's go in here. And they end up busting their way through and finding their way, trying to find August. But they can't find him in the basement, even though we know he's in the basement. But they talk about it later, the house like moves stuff around just to kind of play into it and kind of keep you confused. So ultimately, they ended up splitting up, which earlier in the episode, Phil had given Luke some information. Like, he sent it over, and I'm like, he stumbled across some like birth and death records, and I'm like, well, we're gonna find out. What is it Luke's gonna find out? And then all of a sudden, we see a date, and it's like female, 1985, stillborn. I'm like, wait, what does that mean? And so the moment he comes there, which is so interesting, because the moment he goes to the house, he's like, the house literally pushed me away last time, but now you're letting me in. And it turns out the person he talks to what is essentially the house, which I'm like, is that supposed to be like, at first I was like, is that supposed to be like Megan's grandfather or something like that? Never really got clarification on. He just said like, this house is me and I'm the house. That possibly could be her grandfather, but he's kind of been sticking around so long, and that he's kind of become one with the house, and now they're both kind of feeding off the spirits. And so everyone in the group has their encounters. Phil runs into a Father Diaz. Zoe interacts with Kyle, and Susan runs into her dad. But the thing is, because the whole point of him is like, right, he's like, I hope their encounters are dramatic, because he feeds off of it, like all the anger, all the sadness, all the regret, like all those emotions, like they run high, like that, what he feeds off of, despair. Truth be told is, Phil and Luke are the only ones that walked away kind of about their situations. Zoe, August, and Susan's were a little more cathartic in a way, because August ended up seeing his wife, and he just wanted more, like, no matter what woman he met that was kind of like, oh, he was compatible with someone about his age and this and that, mild attraction and stuff like that. Any person he ever met was just a kind of a pale imitation of her. But he's like, it's not like, no, like he wanted more time with her. It's like, but for her, it's like, we will have our time. We'll meet again, like at the end of we'll kind of have eternity together. And they quoted something, and I was like, oh, so the quote thing that he does, is that her thing, or was that like their thing? Was it something that he did that rubbed off on her, or was it something she did? I'm thinking it's probably like she did it, and it kind of rubbed off on him. And the reason why he still does it is kind of keeping her alive to a certain, extent. Zoe interacted with Kyle because for so long she blamed herself for what happened to Kyle, which he was like, it's like, we have plans, and he's like, oh yeah, me getting high off of oxy and falling off a roof, yeah, that was definitely some 4-dimensional chess. But it's like, he was joking about the fact that he's like, you don't have to hold on to that. Like, what happened wasn't your fault, because she was like, you were supposed to work for a year, and then you come meet me, but it's like, I should have never left. He was like, what happened to me was just bad luck. Like, it just, my mistakes and choices were made, and it's just like, but none of that's on you. You have to go, like, and that's why I was like, I think that's so interesting, because like, I guess once again, like, how certain spirits end up becoming malevolent like they do is so interesting, because like, their spirits hadn't. It's like, yeah, our spirits are gathered here, but maybe it's because they haven't been stuck here long enough, or at least you would think they would be, because Kyle's spirit's here, as well as August's wife, or Susan's dad, or this whole Father Diaz situation. That at the end of the day, they weren't as malevolent. They were actually helpful. Like, they were helping these people that they care about. It's like, no, we're still ourselves enough. Because once again, like, how spirits range from that, how some spirits end up being so corrupted by specific situations. Like, there was the one with like Melanie Scorfano like a couple episodes like earlier in the season. Like that was kind of based on a curse, so that's a little bit different. Like why everyone was kind of the way they were. So there were some cursed situations, but like why the very like minute details of like how like why some spirits turned out the way they did. Like I said, like I just assume like maybe around their death, like whether they have any like anger or anything like that, you know, because I guess like in some spirits cases, like no, I let go, I've kind of accepted, I've had time to process things. You might still be holding on, and they're trying to like, because maybe by helping them let go, they're able to fully let go and not have like unfinished business, like making sure that they're all okay. Maybe that's a necessary thing, I don't know. But Kyle like disappeared afterwards with Susan's dad. She was like holding on to the fact is that she and her dad, like the last time they talked, it was an argument. She said some things, he said some things because she wanted to switch her major to something else. And he was like, oh, that sounds like something I would say. It's like, oh, true but harsh of what you said about me. And it's just like, he's like, but I loved you. She's like, how are me and mom supposed to know? Like, we supposed to read your mind? You never said it. And she's like, everything I ever did in life was like trying to make sure, like, I always wanted to do something to make you love me. Hell, she's like, maybe to some extent, I'm still doing that. And for her father said, I'm sorry. You know, for her, I guess it's like, right, that was kind of like, and he disappears because I think that's the relief she needed, because it's like, he'd never been really vulnerable. I guess he was one of those people that just kind of was like very like logical and stuff like that, so he never really expressed his feelings. It was there. It's like, my love was there. I just might not have been good at expressing it. But, you know, I'm sorry. Like, she's been carrying that the entire time, and I think that did give her some relief. Like I said, I think Phil amongst that group is like the only one who walked away, not any like, because Father Diaz is basically like, it's like, I trained you to slay dragons. Basically, you turned your back on the church because the church won't accept you because you. It's like, no, you're just using that as excuse. And he talks about perversions, and it's like, perversions. It's like the fact is that you are my, because I think for him at the end of the day, it's like, you're the one who trained me, you're the one I admired and looked up to, you're the reason why I became who I became. But it's like, I thought you ought to, anybody would just be happy. The fact is that I was happy, but it's like, it's just basically calling him out for being a disappointment. Now, again, it's like you turned your back on the church and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm curious at the end of the day, like, was that an experience where he needed to, like, was that a needed thing where it's like, right, like he had some reservations about turning his back on the church because he believed he was letting Father Diaz down, but probably like now hearing like Father Diaz's perspective on things, and made him go like, right, me leaving was the right thing. Like, you know, you weren't the man I thought you were, or maybe you've lost a little of who you, like, I don't know what Phil, that's what I'm feeling, but I don't know what Phil necessarily got from that situation. Like, what is 100% like running through his mind because of that? Like, does that solidify in his mind more so about like, oh, it's the right decision to leave, or does that create even more doubts? Does it just, I mean, it just probably just makes him sad about like the person, you know, because later on they're like, oh, who did you see? He was like, no one special. It's like, yeah, someone very important to him, but he's not really getting into the ins and outs of that. There's still a lot of story there, I'm sure. Obviously he had his run with the church obviously like earlier this season, but I think this encounter was obviously a lot more personal, so I'm curious to see what kind of that would mean in the long run for Phil, like what that did to him. At the same time, the interesting conversation about Lucas, like he was like, you're not my mom. I was like, whoa. I was like, wait. I was like, oh, it's like, that's your sister. It's like, yeah. She just took the form of their mom, but that's his twin. And I love the explanation of like, she's like, I'm the reason why you can see what you can see, because basically he has a tether to the other side because of his sister, because they're twins connected by an umbilical cord. It's like there's an umbilical cord tether connecting Luke to the other side. That's why he's always been able to see what he's been able to see. Why the things that he's seen are always drawn to him. Like, that's why he's so wrapped up in this world. It's very, like, slightly spoilers, because it's not a one-for-one, but there's kind of parallels you could draw to it. Beyond Two Souls. It's kind of similar to Jodie and Aiden's situation in that regard, because you end up finding out, like, that's what that was about. So, but that's what this is, like, why she said all those horrible things. It's like she wanted to hurt Luke by pretending to be their mom, but it's like, the reason why she left is because Luke's sister was plaguing her for years, like for a few years at the beginning, because it's like, right, I wanted to make her suffer. She failed to protect me. She failed to bring me into this world, so that resentment manifested like that. So once again, why she manifested in like, not necessarily, kind of became a malevolent spirit this entire time. And it's interesting to know that that's always been a tie and connection to Luke, but he's like, I guess she was always just bound specifically to the house because she was drawn there, but then she was eventually let go. So his mom's out there somewhere in the world. But it's like a combination of postpartum depression, everything that his sister was putting him through, all the stuff that was haunting like around Luke. It was enough to push her away, because I guess because of everything his sister was doing, that's what maybe like his sister dying inside kind of connected her as well. So maybe that tether has been a thing not only for Luke, but maybe it was like that for her. So like maybe she saw the stuff haunting Luke as well, either because her daughter was showing that to her, or because, like I said, she was just naturally tethered like Luke was. So. But the way she talks about it later on, it seems like their situation is only made about because of their kid. I thought that was so fascinating, this whole like twin reveal thing, because obviously like it's meant to look like his mother anyway, but I was thinking like, oh, his mom's saying all this terrible stuff to keep him away. It's like, no, that was his sister trying to hurt him. I was like, that's fascinating. And so basically it's like, right, you've had 36 years of life that you haven't appreciated. Don't worry, I'm going to appreciate. I'm going to live it up to the fullest. I just need you to die. Preferably by your own hand. You want to go gun. You want to like get an artery or whatever. You want to, if you're squeamish, take pills. But he was like, that's not going to happen. She proceeds to try and kill him. I was kind of scared at the end that like she managed to get in, like slip in beforehand. But it's like, no. Well, because they had no choice, because they were like stuck and all the ghosts were approaching. It's like, all right, they're usually dealing with maybe one spirit at a time. You got a whole house full of them. It's like, all right. So Susan like lights up, and I think that's so interesting because it's the most concentrated we've ever seen her use her. I mean, she's only used the fireball one time this season, and she like generated a huge fireball, threw it in the sky to kind of like break that ship's curse when it came to that house a couple episodes ago. But this time she was a lot more focused and precise. Like, anytime I see someone use some spiritual power, like some technique or something with their gun, like finger, all I can think of is Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho. Spirit gun. That will always be in my head. Like, that's always going to be ingrained when I see someone using their finger. I will always think of spirit gun. But, yeah, she basically makes a blowtorch and cut through. And luckily they opened the portal, and everything, including the main dude, Luke's sister, and every other spirit gets sucked into there. So, and I love that Zoe this house is clean, bitch. And then feels like, we're gonna need that open, right? She's like, I was just having a moment. I need it. And he's like, okay. And she's like, thanks. It's just like, yeah, I did it for like dramatic effect. Of course we need it open. So I was like, about to say, like, don't you need to keep it? Okay, that was the whole point. But it's supposed to be symbolic. But as they left, though, like, Luke was kind of shaken a bit. Like, I was like, that's why I was like, did his sister actually take possession of him? But like I said, Susan opens up about, she actually feels like, because her powers have always been something she's kind of been afraid of, because it always made her feel different. And it always kind of came out at, like I said, at earlier times when she was angry and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, being around them, it's like it's now something she can control. It feels good to use it. So I think going forward, like, Susan would use it a lot more because she has a lot more control over it, because she's not afraid of it. She's not scared of it. She's not embarrassed by it. Like, it's like, yeah, it's a part of me and I'm embracing it. But it's so interesting because as she's kind of embracing what she has, Luke, who kind of disparaged for a while what he had, but then eventually kind of realized it to be the gift that it is, kind of lost his. He didn't really go into details, but it's like he can't feel that anymore. Like, his connection to the other side is his sister, and it's because she was here in this world. Now that she's gone, that tether, even if it still exists, it's on the other side. So without her here, it's like, now Luke feels like, kind of like, you can see how heartbroken he is, because it's like, because when you've spent 30 plus years of hearing other voices, eventually, yeah, it wore him down, but eventually it's like, right, I do enjoy what I'm able to do, like having a conversation with spirits, but it's like, now that it's going quiet, it's very lonely, because that's what he had that. He had, like, it's like, yeah, it comes with its drawbacks, but it also has its good side things too. He's able to talk to people, he's able to point people in the right direction and have those conversations. So it's like, it is kind of something that was like a gift, and now it's gone. And Susan's like, I can hold down the fort for a little bit. And he's like, you're gonna have to, like, and he goes to the bowling alley to listen for his dad. But it's like, oh, come on, Dad, please, just tell me, hit like a bowling pin or something. Just tell me you're still there. I can't lose you again. It's like, because at the I think you could make the argument maybe Luke never had to fully let go of his dad ever, because his dad was always there because of his abilities. And now it's like, because the house had talked about it earlier, it's like, right, your abilities make you unpredictable, but now that your friends are here, like, I'm getting stronger, so I don't have to worry about you anymore. That's why I kept you out. That's now that I had everyone here, like, I was feeding off of them. But, like, it is the thing of, like, right, without, because I think for Luke, it's like, right, like, what do I bring to the table if I don't have my abilities? Because, like, I think it's defined him for so long, and it's like, it's been a part of him for so long. And it's almost like, you know, because I think the title of this episode is like The House Always Wins, and it's like the house kind of did, because his sister kind of took that special gift away. It's almost like she wanted him in despair kind of anyway, so like it kind of presented this opportunity. So it makes you wonder, like, will there be a possibility to, like, that situation made it easier, but that power is in Luke. It's just harder to access without his sibling there to draw it out of him. So what that means from him now on, I don't know. Because like I said, like, I think for Luke, it's probably going to make him. Well, first thing he's focusing on is like, right, the voices are no longer there. Can't hear his dad anymore, and it's like losing his dad all over again. Like, I think he never had to really fully process it, because he always had an opportunity to see his dad. So like, it softened the blow, because like, right, my dad's always here, but now it's like, oh, he's gone again, and like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get him back again. You know. It does present a situation where it's like, hey, him and Megan can pick things up, because it's like, right, he's not a part of that world anymore, but who knows? You know, I think that there's going to be a lot of questioning of himself, of like, what does he do going forward? He doesn't know that his mom's out there, so potentially tracking her down after all this time and letting her know what's happening and maybe fixing their relationship. That would definitely be interesting. It makes you wonder, are we done with this side of things? Like, with his sibling, his sister and everything, like, is that something that's done, or will she crawl her way back through? Because that was the whole thing too. The house was like, right, you don't need like demons and hellhounds and stuff like that, like something of the scary and demonic to deal with. Something on a personal level strikes a even deeper, despairing core than anything else. So, like, it's a very, very interesting season finale. At the time of me recording this, SurrealEstate hasn't been renewed or canceled by Syfy. I'm hoping for a season 2, because I'm really digging this show, and especially with a season finale like that. Like I said, everyone, with the exception of maybe Phil, like I said, there might be something more positive on the horizon of that encounter. And Luke, everyone else came away from this very, like, cathartic, like everything was kind of resolved, but like Luke is a little lost at the end of all of this. I'm so curious to see what they would do with a season 2, like whether the houses we get, like also like what Luke's going to do. Like, if we get a season 2, it's probably going to be like months later, because it's going to, like, in a sense of like storytelling wise, like Luke's probably been away for like months, and he's probably been despairing about it, and he's just kind of lost with that. Like I said, this has been a part of him forever, and now that part of him's kind of gone, so he's going to be normal. Like I said, unless we find out what he has deep down, it's deep down inside of him, but just his sister and their connection made it easier. So, and like I said, are we done on that front? Because that's one of those things of like, it's a main overarching story thing that's kind of wrapped up. So I think it's almost like one of those things that's kind of written in a way where it's like, in case we don't get another season, we leave enough threads open, but like certain main threads get closed, just so you could feel some relief in case we don't get. But I'm not hoping that. I want there to be another season of this. I'm not just one more season. I want this show to go on for as long as possible. I'd love to see where this would go next. You know, obviously they've referenced over the course of this season like other encounters they've had with you know, different ones. Like obviously the naming conventions they give in like Harveys and Roadies and stuff like that. So like what else we can encounter. Especially with Susan potentially at the front for a while until Luke figures out whatever he's figuring out, like what happens on that front. Like I said, you know, him and Megan, what that's going to be, or is he going to find someone else? Will we get his powers back? Will he be with his mom? Like a lot of those questions I'm curious to see. Like, you know, if we get a season 2, hopefully we do, fingers crossed. I'd love to see answers to a lot of that. So we'll just have to wait and see what Syfy ultimately decides to do. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, light to the force, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.